Well, good morning. This is Barry Odell with the Church of Christ at Mammoth Spring Facebook page. It is Monday morning, May 27th, 2024. Hope everybody's doing all right today. It's Memorial Day, and, it's Memorial Day. It's a holiday. Hope everybody's doing all right. We are going to do something a little different today. We have been going through the book of Isaiah. We're about to finish the book of Isaiah, and I've got family in this weekend. I've had family in since, what day did you guys get here?
We got here on Friday.
Friday?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we've had family in since Friday, and I'll introduce him here in just a second, let him talk about himself for a little bit. But since they're here, we're going to do something a little different. He spoke yesterday here at Mammoth, preached for us, and taught the Bible class. And so who I've got with me today, for those of you who are watching, and by the way, we're cross-posted onto our nearchurches.com Facebook page. We're recording in Audacity. I'll upload that to Podbean. And I'll also upload this video to our YouTube channel once the live stream is over. So you can access it in a couple different ways. All right, so anyway, today we've got Nathaniel Ferguson with us in the office. He is my nephew, my wife's brother's oldest son.
Correct.
All right, Stacy Ferguson is his name. Well, this is Nathaniel Ferguson, and he works with the Pacific Islands Bible College, which is under the oversight of the elders at the Forest Park Church of Christ in Lake City, Georgia. And he's going to talk to us a little bit today, probably a little bit shorter show, about 30 minutes or so, about the work in the Pacific Islands. He taught some, and he taught about it or talked to us about it in Bible class yesterday, but there weren't really any questions or anything like that. So while we're live, you feel free to ask questions, and I guess I'll read them to you if somebody has a question for you about the work in the Pacific. But Nathaniel, go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself and your family.
So my name, again, is Nathaniel Ferguson. I'm a 2012 graduate of the Memphis School of Preaching. I met my wife, Rachel, while I was there. Rachel, maiden name Medeiros. And we met while I was in school. We got married in 2013, and we have two kids, Atticus and Zoe.
There's their picture. You can see them.
Atticus is about 7 years old. Zoe is 5, going to turn 6 in just a couple of months. We've been working with the Pacific Islands Bible College since 2021, January of 2021. So this is going on our third year, almost fourth year of this mission work. And the Pacific Islands Bible College has been around for a long time, since 1996. And
how long have you and Rachel been married? Did you say that already?
We've been married since 2013.
And both of my kids were in your wedding, I think.
Correct.
Is that right?
Yeah, they were.
So anyway, let's see here. Lyle, good morning. Sheila, good to see you. Gail says we are all here. We're forcing them to listen to us while we're live this morning. Anyway, so I've known you since 2001. I think you said you were 11 or 12 years old when I came into the picture, and married your aunt. Your dad did our wedding on a Wednesday night after Bible study at the Mount Zion Church of Christ in Northwest Tennessee. Anyway, so that's the family. They go. Where are you in that picture? Do you remember?
We're in Latoka, Fiji in that photograph. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I'll take that
down.
That
was last year.
That was last year. Okay.
Just last year, yeah.
All right. Let me pull that down here. Okay. So the Pacific Islands Bible College.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned this yesterday in the Sunday morning Bible class that, well, today you told me it started in what year?
1996.
But the man, Robert Martin,
the director,
been out there since the 70s.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
So Robert Martin is the director of the Pacific Islands Bible College. He created it, started it back in 1996. But before that, several years before that, in 1970, he started doing mission work in Suva, Fiji. He was a local stateside missionary before that in North Carolina for several years. And then he and his wife just decided to move to Fiji. I can't remember the story correctly. I can't remember if Robert had been out there once and his wife Mary and the children had never been there, or if all of them had never been to Fiji before. But they just decided to get up and go and committed themselves to that work for 10 years. They lived in Fiji and worked from 1970 to 1980. Then they moved to American Samoa, which is another Pacific island out there closely connected to the United States.
I'll pull up a map of all that here in just a minute.
But he moved from there, and after another 10 years of working in Samoan Islands, Western Samoa, now just called Samoa, and American Samoa, and then he moved to Saipan and worked there for several years. All of his kids grew up moved back to the States. And then around the time he was working in Saipan, around in the 90s, he came up with the idea for the Pacific Islands Bible College as a way of being able to reach all of these island nations throughout the Pacific. So he brainstormed that idea, came up with it, brought it back to his elders that oversaw him at the time, the same elders, Forest Park Church of Christ, and they gave him the green light, and he's been working with the Bible College as the director ever since. And other missionaries have been associated with the Forest Park Church of Christ, of course, over the years. But that's been his main focus, is the Bible College since 1996.
Robert, and I've been on a couple different places while he was there. Like one time, my dad and I went to a place. I think we actually landed in Nandi, maybe. And we were going to check in, spend the night, maybe a couple nights there till we were going out to wherever we were going on that trip. And so we walked into the hotel, and there was Robert just sitting there feeding this cat named, I think the cat's name was Burger and Fries. And he was feeding the cat French fries. So it's kind of interesting. I started going out there. Your brother told me, and Gail commented on here that, and I didn't remember this, that you walked her down the aisle when we got married.
Yes, I did do that. Yeah.
Okay. Well, anyway, so I started going in, I think the first year, Gail and I went together with Stacy and Kathy in 2002. And we went to Suva, Fiji.
Right.
And then I went with Stacy another time to the island of Chuuk, and I've got a map I'll pull up here in just a minute, but I went with him, I don't know, 2 or 3 times, and then he called me one year and said, "Hey, I want you to get somebody to go with them." So I got my dad, and Dad went with me to what we say Western Samoa.
Yeah, it's just called
Apia.
Samoa now, yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, Joe and Millie told me to tell you hello.
Oh, yeah.
I was there in January.
Awesome.
And they were talking about you and your dad and
Yeah.
how much they enjoyed you being there. You stayed.
We
Who did
stayed
you
right
stay
there
with?
behind. They had a main house and then like a little.
You stayed with them,
Yeah.
yeah.
That was pretty cool.
They enjoyed that.
I was telling somebody about that yesterday. We'd be sitting in their house eating, and it's like there's no doors.
No.
If they are, they're open. They're just chickens running through the house, and
Yeah.
it's an experience.
Yeah, and Millie's actually a Fijian woman. And
Oh, yeah?
her husband is Samoan.
That's pretty
Joe
neat.
is. So she probably mixed in a few Fijian dishes while you were there.
I'm sure, and I really enjoy all the food out
Yeah.
there every time
She's
we
a
go.
great cook.
And I tell you what I really love is the fresh coconuts off the trees.
Yes.
Man. All right, so some of the coworkers out there. Tell us about some of those guys that throughout the years you've
Yeah.
known. And
Yeah, so the main ones that I know of are the ones that have been associated with the Forest Park Church of Christ under their oversight. There are other missionaries that have worked out in the Pacific, such as Aaron and Cindy Baker, and they came out of Bear Valley in the Midwest, and I know them and have worked with them, and they're good people, great Christians, but they don't work there anymore. They're back in the United States. But the ones that I'm most closely associated with are the ones that were overseen by Forest Park over the years, and that would include people like Randy English, Joey Treat, Steve Weiss, who's actually now an elder at Forest Park. After he came back from doing mission work in Saipan, he came back and started working with the congregation at Forest Park. So now the preacher and one of the elders there at the congregation. So there have been several missionaries over the years, some that are associated with the Bible college work or overseen by Forest Park, but not necessarily instructors with the PIBC like I am.
yeah, Forest Park's a good congregation. Of course, I've known it since 2001, making trips down there to see you guys with Gail. But that's a good congregation. And Joey Treat was just with us for a week. Don Blackwell held our gospel meeting, and Joey now works with Gospel Broadcasting
Yes,
Network,
he
and
does.
he helps Don travel at times, and so it was good to see. Dad and I were I think we were in Chuuk, and he came over for like a week and a half from wherever he was, and helped us with the Pacific Islands Bible College courses. And we were there. What was a typical trip? 4 weeks or so, and so that's where I initially met him, and then it was neat to see him. Last month, back in April. Yeah. So, okay. So let's talk about, and you did do this a little bit yesterday in the Bible class, all the locations. I mean, all the areas. I'll throw the map up here so people can see it.
Well,
this is a lot clearer than our projector is about 20 years old. So this is a lot clearer.
Well, and you mentioned Joey, kind of maybe a little peek behind the curtain with the Forest Park elders in particular. we have missionaries that are overseen by Forest Park that live in the Pacific, and then they also run the Pacific Islands Bible College. And the way they do that is they kind of divide the Pacific up by region. So you mentioned Joey. When Joey worked there, he was covering not just places that he lived, like the last place he lived was Guam before he moved to the States and started this other work. But he would do Guam, Saipan, Chuuk, a lot of islands in that region. Randy English is the same way. He does American Samoa and Port Vila, Vanuatu, and a couple of other places, the Christmas Islands. He takes care of those places. And then we, with the Bible College and Brother Robert, we kind of scatter around and we hit north, south, east, and west, all regions of the Pacific. As you can see, if you're watching this, you can see on the map, there's actually 22 different countries scattered throughout the Pacific, from the west coast of the Americas to Australia and New Zealand. And we go to about 13 of those countries and 24 different locations in those countries. Each country is made up of an island chain, and some of them are very spread out and long, like the Kiribati Islands. That includes Christmas Island and Tarawa. It's kind of like a long stretch of islands, and some of them are really close to Fiji, and then others are really far from Fiji. And so that's kind of been the method, is kind of divide and conquer with all of this. And so we go to places like Vanuatu. We actually have courses in 2 places, I believe, in New Zealand. We teach classes because a lot of the Samoan people work in New Zealand as contract workers, and we were asked to come to the churches that these Samoan people established in New Zealand to come and have classes.
I heard you talking to somebody yesterday, and this is kind of interesting to note, is that a lot of these islanders are very nomadic.
Yes.
They'll just go from place to place to place throughout their life.
Yes.
So.
And they'll do that in their country. They'll do that outside their country, especially in the northern Pacific. There are a lot of ties to the United States because of the Second World War. So places like Majuro, because we have military bases out that way. Saipan, Guam has a military base on it. And those few, actually, you can get in with like a U.S. Driver's license because they're commonwealths or more, closer related, almost states even.
Dad and I stayed in Guam one time, and I forget where we were either going somewhere or coming out. We stayed in Guam, and there was a McDonald's there.
Yeah.
And it was not like our McDonald's. No. It wasn't even close.
No. In Fiji, they have a McDonald's as well. They don't sell beef in the Pacific because of the presence of the Indian peoples over there. A long time ago, when the colonizers were coming over, the British especially, and they were establishing plantations in the Pacific, specifically in places like Fiji, where it's very easy to grow sugarcane. They brought over people from India to work as indentured servants, basically slaves as far as I'm concerned, over there, along with the native people, the Fijians. And so because of the religious belief of a lot of Indian people in Hinduism, they don't really sell beef in a lot of places. Now, you can go to like a Fijian-style restaurant where they're selling their local dishes. You can get beef and stuff like that there. But like like a McDonald's, that's not even going to be on the menu because of that.
I didn't realize that.
So that's kind of the cultural, and it goes to what you were saying. So nomadic, so many different people from so many different places. You know, Saipan is where my family and I are going this summer, and you had the Spanish ruling over that island as a colony for over 500 years, bringing in. You go there, you can get Hispanic style dishes, tortillas and chips and salsa and dip over there in Saipan. But then you've got the Chuukese people that migrate over there for different things, family or relatives or work. You've got the U.S. contracted people that come over for the military work that's over there. And then you've got Filipino people that came over as contract workers from the Philippines. Then you've got the local Saipanese people that live there. So it's just all kinds of people from all places. And what that does for us with the Bible College, and this is an important thing to note. What that does for us with the Bible College is it gets our foot in the door in a lot of places. Like we'll go to one location and we'll be teaching a Bible college class in a church somewhere or having a Bible study, and we'll meet or be introduced to someone that's from a completely different place, a different island, and we might convert that individual, or that individual may already be a Christian. They'll invite us to their place where they live, their island, and we try to work that into our schedule. go to these other islands, these other places, whether that's within the nation or maybe a different country altogether, that we try to reach out to them. And especially if it's a couple of new converts that are going home and they're the only ones there, because a lot of these islands are predominantly Catholic or something like that. And so they're really trying to get started. We'll try to make a special effort to go and see them.
I remember this when I went with your dad to Chuk, and we went on the Saturdays we were there. We went out to a little, I think it was like 7 miles out. It's a little island called Udot.
Yeah.
And there was one Christian there. His name was Marino. I remember that because I'm a Dan Marino fan. So, I mean, I guess that would be similar to what you're talking about. But I mean, we're in the Pacific Ocean, and that is not a big boat that we were on.
No.
But we went 7 miles out there, and I remember one of the things we passed, it looked like a mountain coming out of the ocean. But as you came around it, it was just massive caves, and I was told that was like storage for munitions for the Japanese during World War II.
Yeah, there's a lot of World War II history.
A lot of bunkers along the beaches and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty interesting to see all that. So, well, all right, so this was something we talked about just a little bit. Put this map back up here. So and I remember when I first started being familiarized with this work, I would think about the South Pacific.
Yeah.
But that's not correct.
We're not region locked. We go all over. And like I mentioned, New Zealand, we go from as far south as New Zealand and places in the South Pacific to up to the Marianas Islands, which is Saipan and Guam. And that's all in the North Pacific. The North, that's northwest for us, but I guess that's the Far East. That's further east than Japan, is out that way.
Okay.
But so we go all over, and Robert goes to Easter Island down right off of South America. It's kind of hard to sometimes imagine where these islands are because a lot of maps don't include it, and you don't think about how close they actually are to other major continents. But like Easter Island is in the Pacific, and it's off of South America. It's not far from Fiji. Fiji's only about 5 hours by plane, so that's a distance, but it's only about 5 hours by plane from Hawaii.
Yeah.
And you don't realize how far south Hawaii is. You don't realize where a lot of these islands are. And I guess a rule of thumb to think about, and it kind of helps me mentally wrap my head around all these countries that are out there, is remember that there's that tectonic plate, what we call the Ring of Fire, around the border of the Pacific. A lot of these islands come up around that border. So they're close to New Zealand, close to Australia, close to Micronesia is one of the regions there, and it covers a great expanse that goes from the Far East to the middle of the Pacific to the Western Pacific, getting close to the Americas. So it's all scattered around, but they're everywhere out there, all these different countries, and it's a blessing to be able to go to all these different places.
Well, like Micronesia, is that a chain of islands?
Yeah, it's not a country, but it's a region of people. So you've got the Polynesian people, which is more what we consider like native Hawaiian Islanders. They're Polynesian. You've got Micronesian people, which I believe are the Fijian people. And then and I'm blanking on the third group there, but you've got the Micronesians, the Polynesians, and a couple of other groups of people that live out there. And really what that just defines them is about their heritage. They all come from a central tribe of people called the Lapita people. And these people are a merging of Asian people from China and people that came from Africa that joined together in the Far East as nomadic tribes, created this culture and this language that then spread throughout the Pacific.
Well, and you can, like I said, I've been to, like Chuk, that's one of the Micronesian islands.
Right.
And you can see that in them. I mean, that's the way it appeared to me just looking at them. You could see what would you say, the Asian aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's quite interesting to see that. Well, so somebody has a question here. Hey, Connie, good to see you. Connie says, do you work with Truth for Today?
I do not.
Okay, she said.
I am familiar with it, but we don't have any ties that I'm aware of with Truth for Today.
She said they send materials to preachers in many different countries in their own language. They're out of Searcy, Arkansas.
That's a good work. What we try to do with the Pacific Islands Bible College is we do offer all of our materials for free. All the
Yeah.
courses are free. Everything's of no charge to the people in the Pacific. And we try to get the local people to translate our tracts and our textbooks when we can. The thing about the languages in the Pacific Islands is they all have different dialects and they're
Yeah.
all different from each other.
Yeah.
There are some core words because of their heritage, like we were just mentioning. There's some words that are very similar, maybe just a letter change, but how their grammar is constructed is very different. And the best thing to do is to get a local person to translate for you,
Yeah.
because somebody who's just studied it, like in a university or something, who isn't a native person, they're probably not going to know how to speak the language. And we have a hard time finding people that have that kind of skill outside of the Pacific. So we usually get people that we know we can trust to translate those things accurately for us.
That's pretty neat. What is your favorite part of the traveling's rough?
Yeah, that's the worst part.
I remember, one time when we were living in Pensacola, we drove to Atlanta, and I think, if I remember right, I think I flew out of Atlanta to Houston, and then maybe from Houston to Honolulu, and I don't remember, but the traveling's rough. But what's your favorite part of the work?
My favorite part of the work is really the evangelism aspect of it and getting to know the people and spending time with them. I'm not a super big talker, but just spending time with them, having Bible studies, answering questions is probably my favorite thing to do.
Yeah.
I enjoy teaching the classes and I enjoy that, but that's more of like a lecturing kind of situation.
Yeah.
And I enjoy conversation. I enjoy the discussion and the questions, because some of these people, they really have a good mind. They're very intelligent. Some of them are very highly educated. Some people might be surprised by that, but they have universities out there and they train people to be doctors. We was just in Apia, and Joe and Millie's son, one of their sons, is a doctor with the WHO, and he's very intelligent. They're really good people, and so they have some great questions a lot of times.
Yeah.
Because one thing is they're coming from a completely different perspective than we are here in the States in the West, and that Western culture that we have. Sometimes it's the same questions that we ask over and over and over again.
Yeah.
But then they'll come out with a question, I never thought about that before. That's a great question. And I enjoy talking and getting to know them, and because they're such loving, hospitable people. They actually care.
They are that,
want you
for
to feel
sure.
comfortable.
Yeah.
And they're not overly consumed with having things look a certain way or be a certain way. They do have traditions and culture that they hold in respect, but they are not the kind of people that you have to be afraid if you say one wrong word, they're going to get really mad at you, and they're just going to laugh and enjoy it. And that's my favorite part.
They're not nearly as uptight as we are.
Yes, absolutely.
Time is not really, I remember that. It's like, we're going to start at 10. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure you are. I remember that being out there too.
Well, even in the more Western cultures like Samoa, it's not that way. 10 o'clock means 10 minutes after 10 or 15 minutes after 10.
Yeah.
It's not a rigid thing. And sometimes that can be frustrating. We try to encourage them, make sure if you're coming to worship, make sure you come on time, because there are people that, they have jobs that they do on Sundays. And some people, if they can't come to worship and have worship at a certain time, they're not going to be able to come back. So we try to encourage them in that. But on the other side of that, the blessing is when we're having those discussions, when we're having those Bible studies, when we're having the classes, they're there for it, and they don't care how long it takes.
Yeah, well, that's the beginning is not so important, but neither is the end. It's,
right.
They'll sit there for a long time and listen.
Right.
Yeah, even in heat and sitting on the floor.
Right.
Yeah. Well, obviously, taking your family with you is a big advantage. Like I said, the first time I went out, it was just, Gail and I had just been married. I don't think even a year, but we went out together with Stacy and Kathy. But then the next, I don't remember how many times I've been out there. It's only 4 or 5 trips I've been, maybe 5. But it was just me and either Stacy or me and my dad, Jeff. And that's surely things have gotten better, like with communication. I remember when we stayed in Chuk, there was like a little closet under the stairway with a computer, and you could maybe get an internet connection so you could talk. Well, email.
Right.
So has that improved over the years? Several years?
It has, yeah. With cell phones being more commonplace in the Pacific, it's a lot easier to get a cell phone signal out there and to be able to use that kind of internet. There's several companies. In fact, I found out just on this last trip, one of the big cell phone companies called Digicel. It's owned by the Fijian government, but it was started by 2 young Americans who went out there, and it was a lot of work. They put in a lot of effort. There was a lot of red tape to go through to get all of this established, but it's one of the biggest telecom communication places in the Pacific, and you can go a lot of places and find Digicel there, or there's a couple that are from like Australia that you can get out in the Pacific as well that are from the Australian and the UK. And you can typically get a SIM card, put it in your phone, and use that. So that's a lot easier. Yeah. Emailing is easier. You mentioned the travel and you mentioned the internet. Some of these places that we go, it can be difficult.
Sure.
Going
was to... it Duviara?
Duviara was actually the place I was going to mention. In Vanuatu, kind of backtrack, talk a minute about the traveling that we were discussing a minute ago. To get to Duviara, I had to fly out of Atlanta to go to the Los Angeles airport, then from Los Angeles to Fiji, then from Fiji to Vanuatu, Port Vila, the capital, then from Port Vila to Santo, which is another island in that country, and then from Santo to Ambai, which is the island where the village was located on. Then we had to get in a truck with our luggage and drive up the mountain to get to Duviara. I had talked to Verizon Wireless about their international phone plan, and they said they covered Vanuatu. So I went in and had prepaid for international calls to talk to my family, because on that trip, we were out in the bush. We were living in the village. Yeah. They didn't come with me on that one. Yeah. And I don't take people just anywhere. I make sure they can go somewhere that I know they can manage.
Right.
And we got up there, and once a week I would be able to make a phone call, and that would depend on the weather and the wind and where the trees were. I would stand in the middle of the village and hold my phone up above my head, and if the wind was just right and the trees kind of parted down the mountain, I could get a signal from the cell tower down at the bottom of the mountain. It may have been way better cell service down at the bottom of the mountain, but up there it was kind of spotty, and you just kind of had to.
Well, how long did it take you to get from the bottom of the mountain to the top of the mountain?
Solid 2 hours.
And on foot?
Oh, no, that was in the car. And then we had to walk another 45 minutes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Because they couldn't make it all the way up to the village.
Not everybody's cut out to go to places like that. Well, and when I went, that's one thing I told Stacy is, I'm a type 1 diabetic, and I need to have a place where I can store my medication.
Right.
Refrigerate my insulin and things. So in that way, I was limited in some of the places I could go, but, it was, the places I was able to go was, like you were saying earlier, hospitality was off the charts,
Yeah.
They wanted you to come over and spend time with them, and they wanted to feed you. And one thing I remember about every trip I was on is like the last night big meal, just a massive one that really, and I think this was in Apia, maybe cooked a hog on the ground. Does that sound accurate for there? Man, that was.
They have what we would call an earth oven, where they dig a hole in the ground, cover it up with palm leaves, and they cook a pig. That's a delicacy too. That's a special treat that they give.
Well, it was good.
They did that for me at Mangiongi, if you remember that village I was mentioning yesterday. They did that for us on our last Sunday that we were worshiping with them. It's kind of just a honorable thing and to do for us. Yeah, there are a lot of places you can go that wouldn't be too difficult. Yeah. Fiji, there's several congregations there, and Fiji's fairly modern.
It is, yeah.
So many people go there from Los Angeles nowadays to vacation. It's a huge vacation spot for Californians. So they have flights straight from Los Angeles, and that Fiji has some of the best airlines I've ever been on. And so I never really have an issue flying from there and getting to Fiji and getting back out. It's only when you go out in the bush that you have some difficulty. Like when we were in Duviara, they got hit by a hurricane the last 3 days that we were there, and all the planes got stopped.
Yeah.
And we were there for several extra days,
Yeah.
and weren't sure if they were going to actually send a plane to the island that we were on, but thankfully somebody got rerouted, a little 10-passenger plane, and picked us up once they...
Wow.
Well, what it was the guy at the airport there really worked hard and advocated for us and said, we've got some foreigners here. That's not normal for them to have foreigners.
Yeah.
He said they've got flights back to the United States, international flights, expensive flights. If you can come get them. And somebody was like, yeah, I was going to this place, but I can stop by. And I was like, well, thank you.
Yeah. Like they're driving around the neighborhood.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it.
That's just their way of life. They're used to that kind of stuff.
They have to get on a plane or a boat to get anywhere.
Yeah.
And that's the way we have to do it too.
Yeah. Well, let's kind of wind it down here.
Yeah.
Is there a website? I mean, how can people, if they're interested in learning more about it, what can they do to?
So there are several things that they can do. They can go to the Forest Park website to look at the eldership and the oversight of the Bible College work, but the Bible College has their own physical website called the PIBCChurchofChrist.com.
PIBCChurchofChrist.com.
And,
okay.
And that stands for Pacific Islands Bible College. So
and Forest
PIBC.
Park is in Lake City, Georgia, because there's
Correct.
another one in Valdosta.
And they have a huge Latin American mission work and mission effort there. So a lot of people, when they hear Forest Park, that's what they think of.
Yeah.
But we're the one on the south side of Atlanta.
Yeah.
And that's the congregation that oversees us. And you can find out some things about the mission work that the congregation is involved in. And that would include not just the PIBC, but any missionaries that they oversee, like Randy English.
Yeah.
He does a huge radio mission work out there.
That's in Harrison, Arkansas.
Yeah,
which
it's
is
out
about
this way.
2 hours from here.
Gaither Mountain is where he
right.
has his big towers and his facility.
Yeah.
And maybe some people around here have gone to help with that work because he gets volunteers all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can find out more about him and that stuff at Forest Park. But if you're wanting to find out more about the PIBC, PIBCChurchofChrist.com, on there, it actually shows our courses because we offer 21 different courses, I believe, at this point. And that's numbers always growing as we add things on that we see are important. You can take some of our video courses that are on there. They'll link you to YouTube, but you can watch those for free. Anybody can enroll. We have people from Africa, India that have enrolled online, and you can do that if you want to. Our focus is on the Pacific. This effort is designed to help the Pacific Islanders, so it's catered to them and their needs. So not everything is flashy and, like the internet, the website is not this beautiful tapestry of videos and links and stuff because they couldn't open it if it was too filled with all this information. So
okay. Well, anything else you want to say?
I appreciate all the people that have helped with this work, that have participated in it, and who support it, whether monetarily or with their prayers. We always appreciate the prayers of everyone who thinks of us, and we're happy that we can be a part of such a unique work. I never thought that the Pacific would be where I would be focusing my efforts and my labor, but it's a wonderful place with wonderful people. And if you're interested in finding out more, or interested in the classes, or possibly being a teacher, you can reach out to us. There's a way to contact us on the website, and we would be happy to answer any other questions that you have.
Okay. Seemed like I was going to say something else along those lines, but anyway. I was going to mention that here at Mammoth Spring, we support both you and your dad, Stacy, Pacific Island, because one thing that, and our elders have talked about this here, and I feel this way too, is we appreciate the regular updates. We know what's going on. Of course, being family, I know what's going on typically anyway, but you and Stacy both are very good, and I guess the whole crew of guys are very good at updating the supporting congregations.
So there's three families that are with the PIBC: Robert Martin, his wife, my father and mother, and then myself and my family. And we all give out monthly updates on our mission work every month. That's something required of us by our overseeing elders. And we also give reports every couple of years to our supporting congregations.
Yeah.
So we try to keep everyone that supports us in the loop as much as possible and just keep you abreast of what you're participating in, because that's part of your labor as a Christian. So we want y'all to know.
Sadly, over the years, I've found that to be the case, that when a church is supporting a mission work or whatever, you won't hear from them unless they need something. You know, they'll send you a letter, we need money for this or that, and there's not really any like face-to-face accounting and reporting and conversations with elders in the same room, you know. So to me that's a big plus of this mission work, because you know what's going on. All right, well, anything else you want to say?
That's all for me.
Okay, well, like I said, I know it's Memorial Day and folks are out doing stuff, and we're getting ready to go out and do some stuff here in Mammoth. We've got several little things in this town, this city. Of course, the spring and the state park, and about 7 miles out of town, we've got this little thing called the Grand Gulf. And so we're going to go see the Grand Gulf today with the kids and just have a little fun. All of you who have been on the stream today, I appreciate it. Like I said, if you have any questions, Nathaniel's on Facebook. You could probably send him a message. If you have a question about it, Nathaniel Ferguson, you could send me a message. I could relay it to him, whatever the case may be. But I appreciate all of you being on here today. Like I said, if you come in late, this is recorded. The audio is recorded and uploaded to our Podbean channel. The video will be uploaded to our YouTube channel. And the plan is tomorrow we'll be back at 11 o'clock, be back to our normal study. And we're going to start back in Isaiah chapter 62 tomorrow. And I think we're going to finish the book on Wednesday. So that's the plan for this week. So Nathaniel, thanks for being in today.
Thank you.
And appreciate y'all watching. Hope you have a good day. And hope to see you back here tomorrow at 11 o'clock.